Well, hello there. Welcome to the video where we are going to reassemble the Cardinal Bronco 4. You should know that the Cardinal Max 4 is a very similar reel. The only real difference is the bearing. So if you want to know how to reassemble the Max 4, then this is also the correct video to watch. Okay, so the first thing we're going to reassemble is the drag mechanism at the back here. And this is the piece of equipment that breaks the reel when the fish is trying to run. The drag mechanism has almost all its parts here, and there's a part here which you generally don't take off unless it's broken. This is the clicker, which makes it tick 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 when the fish is running. The drag mechanism consists of a set of friction washers, and the general idea with the friction washers is that they are sandwiched between steel washers which can be gripped by the frame, and one steel washer which can be gripped by the spool pin, let's put it that way. Right, so you can see here, and the general idea with these is to create a sandwich. So on the end here you've got a fibre washer. That does get coated in oil. It's not that critical to the braking mechanism, so you shouldn't worry too much about it. These washers here connect to the frame, and this washer here connects to the spool pin, and these fibre washers in between, as long as it doesn't matter if there's a bit of discoloration, as long as they're in fairly good condition, they should be okay, and they're sandwiched kind of like that. The other parts that you've got are the user control knob, which is this piece here, the insert which holds the friction washers in, a circlip which holds the whole lot from coming off, and there's a spring which, because they're spring loaded, and this actually just holds the knob on. Okay, so to put this together, remember you've got a fibre washer on the back there, so you start with one friction washer here against the plate, and then you've got a slot washer, and then you've got another fibre washer, and then you've got a flat shaft washer which connects with the spool pin, and then you've got another fibre washer, and then you've got the last part of the sandwich, which is this, and you need to get those two nubs there to line up because they have to go into a slot in the frame. So if you look at the frame, and then look at the back of the frame there, you can see inside two slots just there and there. Just trying to keep this in focus. So you need to keep those in there. Okay, so it can take a bit of jiggling about to get them in there, but it does work, as you can see. So okay, so the next part of the assembly, we have here a spring. So the spring goes into the back of here, which you can just see with the sunlight disturbing my video. And that screws into the back of there. Okay, and it's clockwise, it's a normal thread. So you then use this as the spanner to screw it down. But before you put that back, you have to put the circlip onto here. So the best way to do that is to just put it on and then show you. Okay, so this is the circlip on, and you can see there's two little holes essentially at either side. There's another one at the other side, and you just push it over, and that stops this being retracted right out and coming right out. You can then put this on and then apply the screw, and that's that part of the reel assembled. So the screw's been applied, and you see that's been done, and you can tell if it's been done right because it clicks properly. Okay, the next part of the reassembly is this part here, which is the main bearing. You need to check it for wear, and this isn't too bad. This is the lower quality version of the two reels, the Max 4 and the Bronco. It is just made from zinc cast. The bearing here is made from bronze, and the main difference between the two reels actually is this bearing. On the Max 4 you will find that there is a ball bearing race instead of this. The bearing assembly, the whole thing put together, this is interchangeable with the Max 4 reel. So you can take that and you can take the ball bearing race block, and you can upgrade your Bronco with a ball bearing race from a Max 4. It's exactly the same shape, and size, and it fits in exactly the same slot. Now the one last thing to say about this is that this is a part that needs to be oiled, and if you want your reel to run nice and light and fast, then that's the way to go. Okay, so once that's oiled, this bearing really it's very simple in this particular reel. It just inserts into there, and that's it done. You have 2 screws, and they go into here and into here. So I'll just show you that. There they are. So you need to remember when you're screwing into plastic, this is a plastic frame. Plastic framed reels, if you want them to last for a good length of time, they rely on self-tapping screws. They're not threaded in the way that a metal reel would be. So you just need to be a bit careful with how you muck about with it. And these plastic frames, you know, they're not as bad as they would have been 10-15 years ago. So the next part of the job is to put the anti-reverse into there, and then the screw goes into here, and then that gets screwed down like so. Note that that is a turret screw. It's not just an ordinary screw, so if you've got a turret screw kicking around when you've finished, then that's probably where it should have gone. Right, so next off, the parts that lie on the base of the reel body, and they're not held down with anything except the side plate. This is the cam wheel, and this is the cam rider, and they go in there. If you look closely at this, you see this recess here. That stops this cog from being lifted out when the spool pin's home. So this cog has to go in before the spool pin goes in. You also see just here there's a little wire thing. This makes your anti-reverse work properly. Now this is a silent anti-reverse, so you don't hear any clicking, but it does work, don't worry. So that piece of wire has to go into there when you push this down. And that's difficult to show on camera, so I thought I'd just explain it before I did. Okay, just a quick note that you put grease on the cog, and you put grease on this cog, but you oil the centre of it, and you oil the cam slider, and you put grease on this cog. And this is about to go in now. Okay, so this is what it looks like when it's inserted. And the next move now is just to put the spool pin in. There you go, feel it when it goes home. So, what holds this in is, you see the spool pin move in there, you see those 2 slots, you've got to line those up either side, and then you have to insert a clip. And I'll just show you the clip. I may not be able to show you it going on, but I'll be able to show you the clip. So the clip goes like that, and then the screw goes in the top just there. Okay, there's a quick shot of the screw just there in place, and that stops your spool pin coming out and stops the whole reel coming apart. Okay, so assembly of the plate, you essentially have the plastic bearing. These are probably some kind of Teflon, I'm not really sure, but if they wear out, you can just get another one, which is actually much better than the old die-cast reels in that respect. Note that there are 2 washers just on top of there, which pack it out, 2 shim washers, and your plate just goes over there. Okay, once the plate is on, there's 4 screws need to be screwed down, and again, when you do that, have a mind to the fact that this is a plastic frame, and these are self-tapping screws, and there's a limited time you can screw these in and out. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is put the bail trip back. So if you look underneath the reel drum, see there's a screw there. What goes in there is basically the bail trip. Okay, so that's what it looks like when it's installed. It goes that way on. You've essentially got the hooky part here, which comes out the other side. So next onto this is essentially these 2 parts here. There's a peculiar spring, which I'm going to show you first, and you've got to be careful with this because it can flick across the room, and it's very fine, and if it does you'll probably lose it forever. So so you have to watch what you're doing with this one. Okay, so that's how your spring goes. It looks a bit awkward here, but when this comes out, that actually is okay. That's the way it works. Put your finger on it, you should be able to get it to snap back. It should snap back like that. So the next part that goes on then is the actual trip. So the trip sits over there, but it also sits on the other side of this, so you've got to work that through. Okay, so that's what it looks like. So what we're going to do next is just put the bail arms. So just here there's a little hole just there, and one end of the spring goes into there, and the long end sticks up, and you want to just push it just inside like that, and you probably have to hold it there while you put the cap on. Okay, so once the cap's on, it'll just stay where it's supposed to go. There you go. So you just turn the screw down now. Right, so that's it on, and this here, you see this in a few different reels. I think it's just a spare screw. Doesn't appear to do anything, so you just leave it alone. Right, so to put the bail arm on, you can see I've got the bail arm there in my left hand. This nub here, that goes into that recess, and that little hole there, that's where the spring goes. And it must go in there properly, or it won't work properly. Now before you do that, the other end of this bail arm has to be twisted into this. Like that. So that's just like a twist lock which assembles that. So once you've done that, you've put the spring in the hole and the nub in the slot. You then put the pin through the bail. That needs to be flush. So the one last thing you got to do, which can be a bit tricky, is to get the circlip onto here. And that's why that must be flush. It must be right flush right through. So the easiest way to do that is to put pressure with your finger from that side to make sure it's pushing right through. Lay that on the surface until it catches under the rim, and then push one end of it with a screwdriver, and that's all I've done there. So now we can put the drum back on. Got our trip ready, and our bail should snap pretty nicely like that. Now on this particular reel, the spool pin has to be out in order to get this on. Normally when I do the assembly on these, I put the drum on first before I finish off the centre of the reel, but for some reason I didn't do that this time. I'm not sure why. There you go. Inside the drum here there's like a triangular washer, and that goes into the slot which is made for it, which you can kind of see when you're doing this. And then you got a brass nut, and the rounded side goes upwards, and that is a normal right hand thread. It's not a left hand. It's not a lefty, as they say. And it doesn't need to be mega tight. You maybe nip it up with a spanner a little, but it doesn't need to be hugely tight. Okay, so because you're using a plastic casing, you need to turn this nut until you feel it bottom out, and then just nip it slightly, and then you will be fine with that. And then what you've got to do is you've got to lift one of these little tabs with a screwdriver upwards to stop the nut coming loose. There's a quick shot of that. Okay, don't forget to put the spool pin back, and that needs to be back before the reel can be used properly, obviously. So essentially your drum goes back like so. That's pretty easy to do. And then the reel handle has a typical hex on it. These are quite common. Most people know how to do this now, so I won't go into too much detail on that. And you can leave this loose to fold it, or you can tighten it right up to use the reel. So there we have our Bronco, which is nice. It's running kind of smooth, and it's in very good condition. And that'll come up for sale. So there is our Cardinal Bronco. This is your drag adjustment. So you put it on slack, and you should find that the spool can just wind off, and you can hear it ticking there. Tells you the fish is pulling. And then if you tighten it up, you can see that that's much stiffer now. The reel turns. It's got a backstop ratchet like most normal reels have, which is when you would use the drag. And then you've got the back forth setting, which allows you to set up the reel and pull the line off the rod and all that kind of thing. There you go. The bail arm snaps over quite nicely, and this is now in full working order, and it turns absolutely beautifully. We also, at the same time as this reel, we acquired a Max 4, and there's a disassembly video on the Max 4 which is almost identical to this one. And the only real difference between the two reels is the bearing. So you can upgrade these Broncos with a Max 4 bearing if you want to put a ball bearing into this reel. It does make it turn a little better actually. I don't know whether it's worth the money to do that, but it does make it turn a little better. Anyway, that concludes the video on the Cardinal Bronco 4 and the Cardinal Max 4, both of which are pretty much the same reel really, and you should look out for both if you want to see how this has been taken apart. If you look out for the Cardinal Max 4 video where we disassemble this particular reel, and then you've got both a complete picture of both reels, disassembly and reassembly. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this little video. Thanks very much for watching. Bye.